Let's say the most reliable.
The most potent activators.
I think walking is a huge one. Every day I walk. Not only do I try to go on walks just like to be outside and do nothing, usually I take my son if we're not doing the bike thing, but just some like sort of low impact physical exercise, but doing the exercise for the mental benefits, right? Just being outside.
And you don't get this from your running and your swimming.
I do, but it's separate. The running or swimming I'm doing for the physical benefits primarily. The walking is just for the walking. It's where you think, it's where you're outside, it's where you're looking around. When I'm running, I'm not like, oh, look how wonderful this is.
Do you run with music?
I do, yeah.
Swimming, I used to swim a bit, and one of the things people used to always ask me was, doesn't it drive you crazy that you don't have your phone with you or whatever?
The whole point.
And of course nowadays they do have, and I was like, are you kidding? Like that's the greatest part of swimming is the sound of the water going against your ears.
Yeah, or the fact that it's almost like a sensory deprivation tank. So many of the parts that are normally alive are turned off, and I think this is why the mind becomes more perceptive.
And obviously you're walking without your phone, without music, without interruption. Are you being deliberate about anything? When you, for example, I don't mean to bring this back to meditation all the time, but one of the things I do enjoy is a walking meditation where you focus on the sensory experience of walking, both in terms of sound, feel, air moving past you. Are you doing anything sort of deliberately in that way?
The only thing I'd be doing is if I find I'm getting caught up in something mentally, to just be like, come back to the experience.
So that is kind of a meditation then.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Walking would be a big one. I mean, I think journaling would be a huge one. We could talk about the exercise thing. I mean, to me, Austin is the most underrated swimming town in America. Like Barton Springs is incredible. Deep Eddy is incredible. Just like the nature you can get here is fantastic. Maybe the other one I would talk about is like a hobby of some kind. What do you do that's not work?
I define some of these hobbies as hobbies where pure effort and anger or rage can make you accomplish a little bit more, like running or lifting weights, and hobbies like golf and archery where that's the opposite. And more effort does not. Do you think it's the latter that are, and I'm biased because I love archery, but
yeah, no, ideally it's not something you can win at. It's something,
not hobbies where effort equals outcome.
Yeah, and willful will. It's not a willpower related endeavor, I think, is painting. If you're an athlete, maybe writing is a hobby, right? For me, I can't also write as a hobby because it's my profession, but I could play sports, right? So having some sort of practice or activity that you do on a regular basis. For me, it's the farm. Like people go, oh, isn't it a lot of work? And it is a lot of work, but it's the opposite of my work. So it's restorative. And I think you find people that they basically sort of become monks in what they do. And that's a very unbalanced, I think, way to live.
It's really easy to do this. And I feel like I could be the worst offender of this. It's tempting to optimize our life so much that there is no downtime. Yeah. It's tempting to say, all play is highly structured. There is no just doing nothing. And I guess that's really one of the beauties of kids, as you alluded to, is like my middle son, who's 5, he loves gardening so much. And he loves Home Depot. It's his favorite place in the world. So really, if you ask him, like, what is his perfect day, it's getting up, going to Home Depot, getting paint, getting buckets, getting flowers, coming back, planting them, fixing the hose, painting the fence, all of these things that, one, don't even seem like they're fun things to do, but they turn out to be pretty fun when you're doing them through that lens. And it would be easy to outsource a lot of that stuff. Oh, come on, we're not going to paint the fence. We can hire somebody to paint the fence. Right. And they'll do a better job, by the way, because I am really bad at painting fences. It's funny because you alluded to this idea that we expect them to bring a tornado to our lives, and yet, ironically, they can bring stillness despite their movement. Yeah, totally. My son loves to get his hair cut, so we go and get haircuts. It's a thing. But me getting a haircut by myself is in no way a pleasurable meditative experience. But when I'm getting with him, it's not the haircut that's the thing. It's that we're doing this thing together. Or he wants to go get the mail. Like, there's these little things that you end up doing and you realize that's all that you have to be doing. And then you're fully present in that thing. Like,
oh, going and getting the mail is an activity for him. I think Alexandra Horowitz, she wrote that book Inside of a Dog about the Umwelt of the dog experience. It's really great. But she wrote another book called, I think, Ways of Seeing or On Looking or something like that. And I've told the story before, and it's obviously in her book, so I'm not making it up. But she went on like 7 walks with 7 different people in different areas. So she went through on a walk with like a geologist in New York City, and he was like showing her all the different things you could learn about that. Or she went, walked through a field with a biologist, and different walks with different kinds of people, a code inspector in a neighborhood, and just like, what are they seeing that a normal person isn't seeing? That's what the premise of the book is. But on this one, she goes on a walk around the block where her apartment is with like a 2 or 3-year-old, her 2 or 3-year-old son or daughter, I forget. But one of the things I think about that I took from that book is she talks about how she thought the walk began when they left the building. But so she's like interviewing her kid after her talk. The kid thought the walk was she's like, we're going on a walk. And to the kid, the walk started when they left the apartment and walked to the elevator and then went down the elevator and then across the lobby and then out the door. Do you see what I mean? And so to a kid, that actually is a far walk. That's the other part you don't realize. You take for granted how easy things are for you. But just the idea that the definition of what the is something kids bring to the table. And as a parent, you're like, oh, like, yeah, this is what we're doing. We're like, my son is like, I want to play dirt. Like, it just means he like wants to play with dirt. And it's like, this is what we're doing. We have these expensive toys. I could take you somewhere. I could do anything. But like what we're doing is like, we're sitting here and we're playing with dirt. And there's a purity to that and a magic to that. I think that is as much stillness as Kennedy and the Missile Crisis. And that I think they're accessing the same place.
This podcast is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute the practice of medicine, nursing, or other professional healthcare services, including the giving of medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is formed. The use of this information and the materials linked to this podcast is at the user's own risk. The content on this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice from any medical condition they have, and they should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions. Finally, I take conflicts of interest very seriously. For all of my disclosures and the companies I invest in or advise, please visit peterattiamd.com/about, where I keep an up-to-date and active list of such companies.